Good evening, Rabbi. Today we're going to talk about one of the topics which is very important to understand, the Torah view of something which is very widely talked about, always from generation to generation, something which is always discussed and talked about, which is the issue of drinking alcohol, wine. So the truth is, that everybody knows that drinking alcohol has many problems, many issues that people get all kinds of problems when they drink alcohol, whether it's car accidents or all kinds of things like this, dangers that are involved there, health issues also as well. Not good for the liver, destroys the liver, the alcohol, all kinds of things, right? There's all kinds of health issues. There's all kinds of issues that are involved there. So, what is the Torah view, right, regarding alcohol and also regarding drinking wine, specifically? What is the Torah view? That also brings us to a different question, which is the Torah view about drugs. What about that, right? What does the Torah say about drugs? So let's take a look a little bit, right? I saw here, there's a Midrash Tanchuma. Midrash talks about this issue. So I want to read through it and tell you, this way you understand what the Torah view is. So it says like this, right? So it says, right, regarding the sons of Aharon, they died. They brought a strange offering into the temple, into the Mishkan. So what happened was that the reason why they died, one of the reasons, Chazal brings several reasons why they died. They were punished for sins that they did. But one of them was that they went into the temple, they went into the Mishkan, tabernacle. They went inside there, then they were drunk. They drank before. So you're not allowed to do the service of God when you after you drink. That's the thing, So therefore, this is one of the reasons why they died. A person who goes into the temple and does service after drinking a cup of wine, he's liable to death on that. Chayav mitah. Can you imagine? Such a severe thing like that. So goes on to say here. So therefore, God commanded after they died, the sons of Aharon, Nadav and Avihu, these were the two sons that they died, right? It warns you about wine afterwards. It warns the Kohanim not to drink wine after they died. These two sons, they shouldn't drink wine before they go in to do the service. So it says, Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu Yizaru ala yain. So now, right, gives you a rundown of all kinds of historical things that happened when people drank wine. So one of them it talks about is also the issue of Noach. So what happened with Noach? Right, we told the story already several years ago. We talked about that, right? How his son Ham, the infamous Ham, right? Now all the politicians, are coming from him, right? So we called. What happened with that? That he drank wine, he planted a vineyard, and then his son Ham came and castrated him, right? He got castrated, he got raped by his son. Can you imagine such a thing like this? So what caused all that? Also, again, drinking wine, right? Being drunk. This is what caused it. If he wouldn't have been drunk, this wouldn't have happened. You know what I mean? Because he wasn't able to defend himself, he was defenseless, he was drunk, he was, was out of his mind. So again, right, we find the same thing over there that caused such a big damage. So look what the Midrash says afterwards. Right? So look what happened, right? That because it says something very powerful. What caused him to be injured and devastated like this? The wine. And also, not only that, it brought a curse upon his descendants, right? The descendants of Ham got cursed, because of what happened there. So the wine brought all the curse that happened because of wine. Goes on to say, right? So he says, look what the Midrash says. Wine brings a person to all the sins. Can you imagine? All the sins can come from wine. What are we talking about? Look what it says, right? Znut, prostitution, right? Shfichut damim, murder, bloodshed, gneva, theft, right? All the sins in the world. But so now comes the Midrash and says, wait a second, but doesn't it say in other places in the Torah that the wine, right, makes people happy, makes people joyous, makes people rejoice? So, make up your mind. Either it's bad or it's good. Which one is it, right? Where do you draw the line there? So the pasuk says, right, in Tehillim, "V'yain yisamach levav enosh." What does that mean? That the wine gladdens the heart of the man. Right, that's what it says. So then, what's the story? So answers the Midrash. Ve'od ki le'osek b'Torah u'pekudav v'yanchil gan Eden, כמו שנאמר, מי היא חייך כי חייך וירחמך, ושיכור בעוד שיין בו, הוא יושב בשמחה כמו שהוא יושב בגן עדן. So look what it says, right? That when a person is drunk, and he has that gladness in his heart, he's glad, he's joyous. So he feels like he's in Gan Eden, at that point, when he's like, intoxicated. He feels so good, so happy, so joyous, right? So that's how it starts out. It's true. So now it brings a story, right, to corroborate this whole thing. What does that mean? That when a person, the point is like this, right? When a person drinks, he feels like, in bliss, it's like it's a bliss for him. It's a euphoric, kind of feeling when a person is drunk. That's why they get drunk. They don't get drunk for no reason, So look what it says, right? There's a story like this brings down something amazing. He says there's a story like this where there was a Hasid, a pious man, a person who's righteous, pious, holy person, but he had a father, who was an alcoholic. You know what I mean? That's the way it is, right? So what happened? You know what used to happen? He used to go drink, his father, and he would go out in the street, drink, and roam around, and get drunk, and then he would fall down somewhere, collapse. How these drunks are, they collapse. They just somewhere in the street, in the gutter, they collapse over there, right? So, so look what it says, right? So what do people do to him when they see that? So the young boys used to come and hit him, as he was, collapsing, in the gutter. And they were laughing at him, and screaming at him. Look at this drunk guy, hey, they're laughing at him, mocking him, This is what used to happen to this guy's father. Right? So it goes on to say, and when the son would see this, how his father was being disgraced like this, by the young men, so he was so embarrassed, I mean, he himself is a holy man, and his father's a drunkard. So it's like his father is shaming him, making him look like a monkey. You know what I mean? This is a disgrace. So what does he do? In order to fix the problem, look what he does, right? So he would tell his father, okay, frequently, he would tell him, listen, do me a favor. I know you like to drink, but you know what it is? Don't drink outside, in the street, because people are disgracing you, making a mockery out of you, So he says, do me a favor. I'll bring you the wine to your house, Just sit there and drink there. You know what I mean? Because there, at least, people won't see you. You're not going to make a mockery out of yourself. You're not going to make a monkey out of yourself. That's what he tells them. So he agreed, his father. Can you imagine? He agreed to this. In the end, he told him so many times, he says, please, you're disgracing me. You're making a fool out of me. Please, just drink in your house. I'll bring you the wine at home, Free delivery, right? So that's it, right? So what does he do? He agrees to it. והוא אומר לו, כן, הפעם אחד או שתיים בכל יום, עד שאמר באביו, שיעשה כן, שהוא אומר שלא ילך לשתות בבית דיין, לכן עשה החסיד, שהוא עושה לו בכל יום ובכל לילה, מאכל ומשתה, מישנו במיטתו, ואחר הולך לו פעם אחת. So what would he do? He would bring him the wine, right? Let him drink and just fall asleep at home. Right? That was the, okay. So what happened was that, so what happened was that one day, once this solution was done already, made. So now this tzaddik, this chassid, this pious man, goes out in the street one day, and he sees another drunkard, not his father, some other guy, also being disgraced, by the young people, like, making a mockery out of him, and, lying down in the gutter, like all drunk, whatever. So what does he do? He brings his father, he's over there. He tells, Abba, come, I want to show you. So his father comes, he shows him, listen, he tells him, here, look, you see this guy, the way he's in the gutter like this, being disgraced by the people? He says, this was the same thing as you did before. This was what you used to do. Now you understand why I told you not to do that? So he tried to tell him, he said, do me a favor. Now you see how disgraceful it is to be a drunkard like this, in the street, in the gutter. So do me a favor, don't drink anymore. Just quit, like go cold turkey. Quit drinking altogether. So his father told him, he says, I'm sorry, my son, but he said, I can't go that far. Look, you got me to drink in the house, okay, that I could do. But don't try to now get me to stop drinking altogether. So he tells him, why? Why can't you do that? What's the reason why you can't listen to me? Right? So what does he tell him? Look what he says, right? It says, he tells him, he says, that's the only pleasure I have in my life, to get that drunken feeling, For me, this is like my Gan Eden, my Garden of Eden. That's what makes me feel good in life, like otherwise, I don't have, my life is not happy, not worthwhile. He says, I can't give that up, it's just it's too good. I can't give it up, So he couldn't go that far, to make him give it up altogether. You know what I mean? So what do we see from here? That a person, when he drinks, he feels very happy. He feels like, in bliss, in euphoria. That's the way it is. That's why people drink. Okay. So it goes on to say, so now comes the Midrash and tells you, right? See, this is the problem, There are certain things that a person can do, like, drink alcohol and drugs, and they make him feel good for a while, But the overall effects are very devastating. It kills your health, it kills your, the family life, kills your social life, makes you disgrace out of you, makes a mockery out of you, all these bad things, So the question is like this, if that's the case, what can a person do, to get that euphoric feeling, but without having all the bad side effects? You know what I mean? All these things that we don't want, these negative effects that drugs and alcohol have. So says the Midrash, let him study Torah, Torah gives you a feeling of euphoria, but you don't have the side effects there. So the best feeling of euphoria in this world is Torah. Right? That's a big thing to understand, So what does that mean? That when a person, has problems, achieving the euphoric feeling that he's looking for in life, because he lacks Torah, that's what it is. He doesn't have Torah, so now he's looking for all kinds of things, drugs, alcohol, this, right? He's trying to get pleasure from other places. Like that song, right? I can't get no satisfaction, People singing this guy, It's true, you can't get satisfaction in this world. Like whatever you try to do doesn't satisfy you. It does for a while, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but then you're back to square one again. So what did you gain by that, right? What is the gain? By the way, the same thing, I was told, some of my friends, we grew up together with some people, and, but most of us, a lot of us weren't in music, and when we were younger, but then, most of us left music, and did some other things, in life, more normal jobs, more everyday, mundane, humdrum stuff that we did, right? So, but some of us actually stayed in music, all the way through. So, there's one of them who, until this day, he's still in music. So, one time, I spoke to him, whatever. So, he says, he explains to me something, He says, what he says? He tells me, when I'm listening to that great song, I get that euphoric feeling, like there's nothing compares to that, that beautiful song, that's like perfect, produced well, produced perfectly, and the melodic and instrumental and everything is so beautiful, That 5 minute, 10 minute euphoria, that I get from those songs, that's my life, man. That's what I really get pleasure from. Same thing, But the thing is also with these songs, they're also not really a solution. You know why? Because once the song is over, you're back to square one. In other words, you didn't really gain nothing. So the songs also are not really the solution. Because they only give you that 5 minute, 10 minute high, but then you're back to the normal. So you can't get it from there either. So what does that mean? You can't listen to music all day, it doesn't give you the high anymore. It only gives it to you when you listen to it like in a limited scope. You know what I mean? Once in a while, take a rest for 2 hours and listen to another song, like that, right? But if you listen to it all day, it gets boring already. It gets redundant. So music is not the solution either. You know what I mean? So then what is? Only Torah. Torah is the only solution. That's the other thing, The Torah can get you constantly high and euphoric with no side effects, right? Only you gain from it, not lose nothing. That's the thing, That's the most amazing thing. That's what he wants to tell you, right? That a person has to know that the only real, true euphoria, which is the perfection, is the Torah. That's one thing. Okay, so then he goes on to say, right, that also wine not only harms you in all the ways that we mentioned, but also it's very expensive. When you start drinking alcohol, you have to spend a lot of money. You're always going to the liquor store and drinking this one, buying that one. They cost a lot of money, these drinks. This is not Coca-Cola, It costs a lot of money. You go into the liquor store, you buy like a nice bottle of whiskey, right? $30, $40, $50. It's a lot of money. So can you imagine a person who drinks like that every couple of days, he has to get a new bottle. That's a lot of money. So it also dries up his money as well. That's another thing. So what we're saying is that the drinking gets you from every side, like it messes you up in every way. It causes you to be a sinner, to be disgraced. All the sins in the world come from there. That's the idea. Also, another thing, which he mentions over here in the Midrash is that in the first temple, what we find is, that the northern kingdom, Ephraim, they were very big drinkers, these people, wine drinkers, and they used to sit around. Instead of studying Torah, what were they doing all the time? They were drinking wine, drinking alcohol, and getting drunk, and having parties, this kind of lifestyle, party lifestyle, party it up, So here also, what they're telling you is that this is what caused the destruction, of the first temple, the heavy drinking that they were doing, that caused the exile, the first exile that the Jews were exiled from their land, was because of the heavy drinking as well, So it makes a person, it turns him into a bad lifestyle. It makes him into a person who's not very productive, not successful. Very very much a pleasure seeker. Somebody just looking for pleasure, but is not really making anything in his life, not really producing anything. So when a person gets into alcohol, this is what happens. Also as well. But the interesting thing is like this. That in Judaism, many of the mitzvot that we have to do with alcohol also, are centering on alcohol, with wine. What does that mean? We make Kiddush on Shabbat with wine. We make Havdalah with wine. Right? We do Zimun with wine. When we say Birkat Hamazon, all these mitzvot have to do with wine. On Purim we drink wine. On Pesach, Haggadah, we drink 4 cups of wine. So there are many things, that center around the issue of wine. Our religion is very heavily based on drinking wine. So the question is, if you're telling me that it's so bad to be alcoholic, and to drink excess alcohol, so then why is our religion so much reliant on wine? So therefore, answers the Midrash, right? Very simple answer. You know what it has to do with? It has to do with how much you drink. You know what I mean? If you drink limited amount, it can be very good, very productive. They say a glass of wine every day is good for you, right? Things like this, red wine is good for your heart, all kinds of things, So alcohol can be very productive as well if you use it in a very, if you use it in a very limited manner, controlled manner, controlled atmosphere, So if a person drinks in a controlled way, he can control himself and not become a glutton, to become a drunkard. Not like that. That's not the way to do it, right? So then it is very productive, very good for him. He's doing the mitzvot. Kadosh Baruch Hu told us to do many, many mitzvot with wine. So therefore it's considered to be actually one of the foundations of our religion, drinking wine. But nevertheless, it depends on the amount that you drink. That's the main issue. When you drink too much, it becomes very, very harmful. This is the thing.
You have to be disciplined.
Right, that's the idea. So this is one of the things in our religion where we find that it's not forbidden, to drink. It's not. But when you start to do it too much in excess, it becomes a very big problem.
What if you're a good drunk?
Yeah, some people. I know what you're talking about. What you mean to say is that some people have a good spirit when they drink.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it harms them. It's not a good lifestyle. It's a very destructive lifestyle. Like I saw, and also in the Zohar Kadosh, he talks about this. What happens is, it says over there, that when a person drinks, he starts to do things that he wouldn't do otherwise.
Sure.
You know what I mean? He starts to talk in a very foul way, foul language, very vulgar stuff. He talks vulgar to women,
Some people become very loving.
Right.
Like they...
Yes. Some people become loving. Some people become also, violent. There's the flip side. But either way, right, they lose control. You know what I mean? So they start to get, violent, not violent, but vulgar,
It sounds like Georgians are drunk all the time then.
I mean, they start to also, make improper gestures to women.
Yeah, you're not yourself.
You know what I mean? Yeah. You're out of control.
You're altering your...
Exactly. So, there's also another interesting story, which I've told over before, which is the famous story in Masechet Megillah, in Talmud Megillah. It says over there, right, that on Purim, there's a mitzvah to get drunk. It's a mitzvah to get drunk. Can you imagine? We have a mitzvah once a year to get drunk.
Yeah.
So, how does that fit into what we just said, right? So the way it fits in is like this, that Purim is such a holy day that drinking on Purim doesn't harm you. It's a good thing. It's such a very holy day. It's super, super holy. So when you're in such a holy state, like in Purim, things like drinking don't harm you.
Even if you overdo it.
Right. You're supposed to overdo it. That's the whole point, right? But nevertheless, right, even though you're supposed to overdo it, but it says in the Gemara, right, that there was a story that it brings down there, Rabbi and Rabbi Zera, right? Two rabbis of the Talmud. So one invites the other one, to come over for Purim, to drink. It's a mitzvah to drink, So what happened, right? It says there they drank, got drunk, and then come Rabbi v'shachte Rabbi Zera. What does that mean? Rabbi got up, took a knife and slit the throat of Rabbi Zera, That's right. Kisei daucha. Yeah, sick, yeah. So what happened was that he cut him like, a laceration, like, he was going to die. I'm not talking about a little nip. I'm not talking about a shaving accident,
Yeah.
A little bit of a nip from the razor.
You're talking Friday the 13th.
So what happens is, right, that he would have died, So Rabbi got up, being that he was a rabbi, holy rabbi. He prayed for him, and Hashem made him a miracle and saved him. Otherwise, he would have died. So they say that what happened was that next year, right, comes Rabbi and calls him up again, tells him, okay, let's drink again. Can you imagine? He invites him again. So Rabbi Zera tells him, he says, oh, I'm sorry, Rabbi, but this time I'm not coming. So it tells him why. What happened? What's the problem? So he says, not every year they make a miracle, you know.
I was just gonna say, I was.
So they say from there, right, the commentaries, you know, that even though there's a mitzvah to get drunk on Purim, but it's not for everybody, you know. For a person like Rava, not a good idea to get drunk, you know. He shechted him, he slaughtered him. You know what I mean? So, question is, why did Rava do that? Right? What, rabbis are killers? Is that what it is? Right? Rabbis are murderers? So the truth is, you know, that the Torah teaches us one thing, you know, that there is one planet, right, in the constellations, which is called Mars. You know, Mars. Everybody knows what Mars is, right? They're trying to go there now, to go there, right, to send a human there. It's going to be very hard to do that, but
Why, they want to meet Esav in person?
That's funny. So they want to go to Mars, right? Whatever, but Mars, right? The constellation of Mars is murder. You know, red. It's red. You know, murder, blood. You know, and Esau was also red. You know, that's what he was, right? Until this day, right? They're red. You know, the descendants of Esau. You know, rednecks. You know.
Abraham was talking about Esav.
So, anyway, right? So Esav is red. You know, Mars. This whole thing, right? This whole thing. So there are people who are born with the constellation of Mars. That's their mazal. In other words, the hour that they're born in, Mars is like ruling at that time. You know, so that person is naturally like a bloodshedder. You know, he likes to shed blood. So they say, right, Chazal, it's famous midrash. They say that whoever is born under that constellation is going to be shedding blood. But if he's a tzaddik, he's going to be a mohel, you know, doing brit milah.
I see.
You know, if he's Benoni, if he's a regular, you know, middle of the roader, right, he's going to be a shochet, you know, slaughtering animals. If he's a rasha, what is he going to be? He's going to be a gangster, right, shooting people, you know, in the head, you know, whatever, things like this, right?
Probably going to be doing a botched Brit Milah.
You know what I mean?
What does it say about women getting drunk? It's interesting.
We're going to talk about that. It's good you reminded me. Right, so I just want to finish the story. So what happens like this, right, that they say that Rava, it says in the Masechet Shabbat, different place in the Talmud, that Rava was born under that constellation, you know, Mars, you know. So he was a natural killer. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're a rabbi or not. That's not the issue. This is your nature. You know what I mean? So, so what happened was that this is the reason why he slaughtered him, you know. Yeah, he slaughtered him, you know. Looks like they get into an argument, something happened there, you know. They got like a little heated up, you know. The heat went up a little bit, the temperature went up a little bit. Boom! Right, so it's funny, by the way, because there's another Gemara, you know, the one I mentioned in Shabbat, that talks about this issue, that whoever's born in that constellation becomes a bloodshedder. So it says Rava, you know, he heard of this lesson that they taught. So Rava said, I was born under that constellation, but I never killed anybody. This was before that story. You know what I mean? I never killed nobody. So why? What happened to me? You know? So you know what the rabbis answered him? The rabbis answered him, you don't kill, but you kill with your mouth. In other words, you have a very sharp mouth, you know? You rebuke people, you know, you tell them, you know, harsh things. You know, so you're also a killer. You kill with your mouth. In the end, he wound up killing also with his hands as well. He almost killed somebody. You know what I mean? So you see from there, right, that, so what is the Gemara teaching you? That a person has to know himself, you know? If you get violent when you drink, you should not drink. Not on regular days, not on Purim. You should never drink like that. You know what I mean? Never get drunk. You can drink one or two, you know, whatever. But too much is no good. You know, because you have a nature, violent nature. That's really something dangerous, you know what I mean? So that's the thing. Now, regarding what you asked about, right, we'll finish with this, right, regarding the women. So the truth is, there's an interesting Gemara about this, you know? So what is the general take from this Gemara is like this, that women don't tolerate alcohol as well as men do, you know? They're more sensitive. You know what I mean? It affects them stronger. Because their bodies are more, you know, they're not as zdarovny, you know, strong, you know, they're not so strong like that. So what happens is that a woman gets really affected by alcohol. I mean, much stronger than a man. So what happens? Says the Gemara, right? When she drinks one, she's good, jovial, happy, everything is good, Once she starts to drink two, already getting into the danger zone. You know what I mean? So what happens when they drink two? It says that she'll go and have sell herself, her to have relations with some man in the street. You know what I mean? She's already out of control. Once she's had already two, control is lost. So what does that mean? She's ready to already sell herself, prostitute herself. You know what I mean? Once they have three, they say she'll go in and have relations with an animal even. Bestiality she'll do, That's what it says in the Gemara, So what do we see from that? That women should also be very careful about drinking. They shouldn't drink too much. One is, that's it. With women, one is good enough.
A lot of American women drink. They're alcoholics.
Well, you know what the results are.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't have to tell you.
Yeah.
Right. So
we know what the results.
Yeah.
are. We know what the results are even without being drunk. Can you imagine being drunk?
What they are exactly.
Yeah.
That's funny. So, right, the point is like this, right, that women have to be extra careful. So therefore, right, the rule is that, regarding Purim, when they say it's a mitzvah to get drunk, the mitzvah is not for women.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what are we trying to tell you? That it's never a mitzvah for women to get drunk. It's never a mitzvah. They should not get.
I've noticed that when they do get drunk, they get very horny. They're aroused.
That's what we're saying. It gets to a point where they're ready to do.
They're beyond control.
Anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, when they're sober, they're out of control. But when they're drunk, I'm assuming they're beyond control.
Whatever it is, anyway, the point is, right, that, we can let them, drink one, so if a person, has a daughter or a wife, whatever, you have to watch over them, not let them drink too much.
Even though I've noticed when they're drunk, they're very bubbly, they're very flirty, they're very,
Right, you gotta be careful about that.
Yeah.
You gotta put your eyes on that, right? That's the idea. So the point is like this, right? That also we have a mitzvah to drink 4 cups of wine on Pesach,
Right.
Yeah. Which is for the freedom, to display freedom, cherut. So what can a person do? If a person, right? The truth is, if you drink 4 cups of strong wine, you can get really drunk. Especially a woman, So what should they do? Very simple, let them drink grape juice. Because going to halacha, the wine and grape juice are the same. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. So in halacha, when you squeeze the grapes and make it into juice, that's called wine already. Even though it's not alcoholic yet.
You could still get drunk from it.
Yeah, a little bit maybe, whatever, but it depends on the truth is you can get drunk from grape juice.
Yeah, you can.
Some grape juice is already fermented, quite well.
It happened to me.
Right, yeah. You feel that, right?
Yeah.
I feel it too sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I drink some grape juice, and I'm like, whoop, whoop, I start spinning around. Absolutely. So what do we see from all this conglomeration, right, of information, right? First of all, number one, that our religion is heavily based on drinking wine. Many of the mitzvot that we do have to do with that. So we cannot totally reject it and say, "Oh, we'll never drink." Like Trump. He said, I don't drink at all. Or these some religions also. They don't drink at all. That's going a little bit too far. For us, because our religion is based on drinking. So we want to drink. We can't just nullify it altogether. Also, there's a Gemara, by the way, in Masechet Nazir, which says, right, Rabbi Lazar Kapar, he says over there that a person who abstains from wine altogether is also a sinner. Why is that? Because he's denying himself the pleasure of drinking wine. It's also not a good thing. You shouldn't deny yourself of pleasures that are allowed to have. So therefore, a person shouldn't go that far to abstain from wine altogether. As if it's it's a deadly disease. You cannot touch it. It's going too far also. So what we're saying is like this, right? That a person can drink, in moderation, especially for the mitzvot, they should drink, But the point is, right, not to go overboard, because once you do, You get drunk, you lose control. You become like a crazy person. You can come to do any sin. You can come to bring to any sin over when you drink too much. What about drugs, by the way, right? That's a different thing, right? So the truth is, that there are heavy drugs, there are light drugs. So therefore, what I'll do is I'll discuss with you the light, one of the light ones, and then you'll understand the heavy ones are even worse, right? So all the more so. So, regarding smoking marijuana, there's Tshuva of Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, he talks about this, So they asked him, are you allowed to smoke it or not? So he answered, no. So what's the reason why? Where does it say in the Torah you cannot smoke marijuana? It doesn't say anywhere in the Torah. But he says it's very obvious. Why? Because it causes you, to lose your concentration. You become like very, absent-minded, and you don't know what you're doing. And you're not going to do the mitzvot properly. You're not settled. Your mind is not working properly. You can also have an accident. You can get into a car accident, go crazy. You can also, there's too much lust, when you smoke. There's a lot of lust there. There's a lot of lust for food and other things, other lusts as well. So what does that mean? That a person who's on the influence of marijuana, he can't serve God like that. He cannot do the mitzvot properly. He cannot study Torah properly. His mind is not clear. So then what's the point of being like that, right? So therefore, says Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, you see from there, right, that it's not allowed to smoke marijuana. That's the idea, right? Even though they're legalizing it now, right, in many states and so forth and so on. Nevertheless, right, it is what it is. It also makes you, one of the big problems with marijuana, besides the fact that it increases your lust, and decreases your mind, kills the mind. There's also another problem, which is that it makes you into a bum. You become very unproductive. You just don't want to do nothing. Like you all day, you're just like hanging around, doing nothing. So this is also a problem. So therefore, according to halakha, right, drugs is worse than alcohol. Why? Because alcohol is a part of our religion. We do all kinds of things with alcohol, the mitzvot. But when it comes to drugs, there's nothing, there. With religion, there's nothing there whatsoever, So therefore, right, when it comes to that, right, so therefore marijuana is forbidden to smoke. All the more so the harder drugs, which are even worse, right, much worse, much more dangerous and much more lethal and deadly, right, whatever. Right, all the bad things come out of there. They totally destroy a person's intellect, and his mind and body. They can also kill him, by the way. A lot of people have died, People are overdosing. They say this is the biggest problem today in America. Yeah. The overdosing on drugs. So, fentanyl and all this stuff, right?
Either that or stay away from heaven can come out of doing drugs.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you mean. But anyway, the point is, right, that, this is not the way a person should be living, especially a Jew. I mean, unproductive, bum, that's lustful, very, very, absent-minded, and giggling and laughing, and this is not the way a person should be living his life. Torah and mitzvot, where's he going to do Torah and mitzvot like that? Where's he going to do? So therefore, obviously, that's forbidden, right? So therefore, when it comes to drugs, but, people have asked me also, when I posted about these things, about doing drugs and marijuana, they did ask me, what about if you're doing it for, healing purposes, right? Because they say it's a pain reliever also, cannabis, which is the, drug, which is in the marijuana, right? Same thing. Cannabis, marijuana, same thing. So, the question is, are you allowed to take it, as a pain reliever? So they say, that a lot of people who are in deep pain, it relieves their pain, So for that, it's okay. You're allowed to do it. Because this is like just healing, It's not, even though it's going to get you a little high or whatever, it will. But anyway, right, it's better than being, in intense pain. You know what I mean? Which a person can't tolerate. It's intolerable, to be like that. So therefore, we do the lesser of two evils, right? Which is, we sacrifice a little bit your clarity in your mind, as long, and you shouldn't have intense pain. That's the idea, So therefore, in a case like that, we will allow it. And by the way, in Israel, they do allow it already. They do. They have over there marijuana for healing purposes. Mm-hmm. They give it to sick people. They prescribe it over there. And, the rabbis didn't say nothing about that. They didn't object. The religious parties over there, nobody said nothing. So therefore, you can see that shtika killed adame. You know what that means? In Hebrew we say, right? When a person is silent, that means he admits that it's right. So since nobody said anything, it must be that everybody admits that it's right. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen, amen. Thanks for coming. Be blessed with wealth, health, happiness, amen, all the good things in life, and stay away from all the bad things, like overly drinking overly, or taking drugs, all these bad things. We should avoid them, Ezra Hashem, and be sober and do the mitzvot and Torah. Amen, amen. And this is the best elixir. This is the best euphoria that there is, right? As we said, studying Torah, doing the mitzvot. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen, amen. Chazak Baruch. Thank you.